Hello, welcome to another McLaren Fans podcast. Joining me this week is Andy Robinson. Say hello, Andy.
Hello, everyone.
And also Mark Taylor. Say hello, Mark.
Evening, everyone. Nice to be here again.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Sarah can't be with us this week. She's not well. So, we've got two of our more popular guests along to join us tonight.
My mum listens a lot when I'm on, so that's true.
Yeah, we're banking on her listening to it to get our listeners up. So, there's quite a few things to talk about. Quite a few things that have been added to the agenda in the last couple of hours today as well.
Very true.
Definitely.
Yeah. Shall we jump straight into the race weekend? Why not? So, I was quite optimistic seeing the practice and the qualifying sessions. I think at one point, didn't we have like a P2 and a P5, something like that? Or
Friday was great. We had a really, really strong turn up, turn it on, see if it works. We had a great Friday.
Yeah. And, at that point, I'm like thinking, well, hang on. I'm not thinking we're going to win this. I'm thinking we've got a really good chance of getting some good points here this weekend. That's what I'm thinking, or maybe sneak a podium.
Yeah, when McLaren put the tweet out, always saying, like, where do you think we're going to be in qualifying after practice? And genuinely, I was like, we're good at 4th and 9th. We might get 4th and 9th after the practice sessions. And then the rain came.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's always a bit of a leveler. But yeah, sort of certainly, it's a bit of a shame. Obviously, we were, doing quite well in the sort of practice, and then I think was it FP3 where the rain was affected everything. And I'm kind of hoping that what we got out of that is a bit of data about how the car runs in the rain, because especially if we're going to Spa next, we probably need to know that.
Yeah. When to change off our tyres would be lovely.
But I think the optimism remained into quali though. P4 and P9. I think P4 for Lando. I think we had every right to think we were going to be on for a podium. We know what happens at the first corner of Budapest.
Yeah.
And provided we can stay out of trouble, there's definitely reason to suggest that we would have done really well. But sadly, Bottas was a bit further back to cause trouble this year.
Yeah,
I was more optimistic. Like practice sessions did really give us that a kind of air of we could be doing something here.
Yeah, we definitely seem to have a decent enough race pace, and maybe not quite competitive with the front, but certainly best of the rest. That's what I was thinking, by a good margin.
Yeah,
I agree.
And on the quali, I thought we executed it perfectly, really. I thought there was we took the opportunities when we could. There was a little bit of a kind of nervous moment from Q1 with Dan. I was like, oh no, don't just drop out. And it was kind of had a bit of luck there. So but yeah, comfortably both in the top 10, and Lando starting on the grid 5th or 4th.
Fourth.
Yeah. And Dan down in
9th.
Yeah. So I would have liked to have seen Dan a little bit closer, but when you actually looked at the sort of times for quali and stuff like that, this is probably one of the closest qualies that we've seen all year. I think there's like at one point there's a second between every team, which normally there's the top 2 teams and then the drop off, and then it's bunched together. But it seemed pretty much a bit of a leveler this weekend. I also guess nobody expected Mercedes to do what they did in quali either.
Not at all. I think it was the end of Q2 where Lando on his last lap, he set a purple sector 1 and then went wide slightly and canned the lap, but set purple halfway through, right at the end of Q2. That was quite ominous for what we could have done in Q3.
Yeah, certainly, it's a solid enough qualifying performance again, and certainly, if we can keep that up and keep that going, our aim for the rest of the season has got to be both cars into Q3, wherever we place. We're going to beat the Alpines to the end of the season and get that fourth place, then we've got to qualify well as race well. So I think that's probably what we're going to aim for.
And it has to be both cars as well. I'm sure we'll talk about the deficit between our drivers at some point, but we've both got to be fighting for points. We've both got to be fighting for good points and not just leave it to Lando.
Yeah. Essentially, you can see with the race, can't you? So let's get on the race itself. I thought Lando had a cracking start, held off Lewis for a good couple of laps. I think once the soft tires started to kind of go, then it was a bit of a sitting duck then.
It was tyres yesterday, wasn't it? That's what everyone's going to talk about. Tyre choices, and I think our bed was made Friday, Saturday, really.
Yeah, I think so. And I thought Ricciardo was quite unlucky. He got kind of whacked up the ass by Magnussen, and right on the opening lap. And no matter what you do, there's always going to be a bit of damage to the floor or something that's going to be. So I thought he did quite well after that. We'd not seen anything from the team saying that he was carrying damage or anything else like that. But he looked quite competitive. At one point, we had both cars up there in I think it was 6th and 7th, running pretty good. And then probably the best moment of the race for me was when Dan overtook the two Alpines in the one corner. That's the kind of overtake that you see on F1 titles for the next couple of years, or on a flashback when we go back to Hungary 2022 and Daniel Ricciardo overtook two Alpines in one corner. And I think just on that, I think this track was probably the one where we saw the regs this year actually make the most difference.
People were able to follow for 4 or 5 laps, get really close, and then the usual overtaking spots were still there, 1, 2, 3. But no, just Dan's overtake, we were screaming. We were watching it and screaming. It is one of those takes. Senna says, if you no longer go for a gap, you're no longer a racing driver. He saw a molecule of a gap and proper put his car right in the mix. You gotta love that. We were absolutely adoring that move. And then you obviously saw Twitter blow up straight away with all the pictures straight. It's just, he's not lost his ability to overtake. Give him a hole and he'll go straight through it.
I think, like you said, Andy, it's one of those overtakes that you'll see for years to come. It's a bit like the Mansell on Senna years ago when they were wheel to wheel, and when Hakkinen took Schumacher and whoever he was lapping in Belgium that time.
Zonda, I think it was.
Yeah, sorry?
Zonda,
him, even, yeah.
I don't think
but that just shows that he's still got it. Again, I'm sure we'll talk about Dan, but that shows what he's capable of.
Yeah. And it was kind of almost the race where it showed the best and the worst of Daniel Ricciardo in a McLaren for me.
What was the worst?
What was the worst?
Yeah.
Well, you just, obviously you got the 5-second penalty for hitting Stroll later on, and he locked up, but he just went backwards. He just went backwards and backwards, and you can see the I'm sat there thinking, just even you can just get us 1 point, just 1 point would be great. And backwards and backwards and backwards. I'm just thinking this is just not going to do much good. There's going to be people with knives out on social media and stuff like that. Now, it turns out, the quote from him is that he struggled. He could not turn on the hard compound tires. I guess is the question of, why did we put him on the hard tires? A lot of people have asked that. A lot of people have said, why did you put on the hard tires? Daniel asked for softs. The team probably got a lot. Well, they did get a lot of flame for that on Twitter. I guess we can only speculate that they didn't have any soft tires left,
or even before the race, Pirelli put out their stats before the race every time, saying what tires each driver's got. Both our drivers had 1 new hard, 1 new medium, and 4 used softs.
Right. Yeah. So it
he
really
didn't have any. Yeah.
Yeah. We really got not much chance. And it's quite interesting, just on the Pirelli point there, that they'd also put out like optimum strategies and alternative strategies, and absolutely nowhere was it soft, medium, hard that we did, or medium, hard was a strategy that they would recommend.
Hard didn't even feature. There wasn't a hard on any of their strategies. They avoided like the plague.
Yeah, so it's kind of, yeah, and it wasn't just us as teams that ended up in that situation. I wonder if we all thought we would get away with a 1-stop. Maybe there was going to be a safety car that kind of came out and made a difference, but yeah, when the tires just started to go straight away, you kind of thought, oh, this is a 2-stop race. I was kind of surprised that there wasn't anyone ended up 3-stopping, to be honest.
But there was also the weather factor as well. Everyone was expecting rain. I think the first half of the race, they were saying rain was coming in 30 minutes, so everyone was expecting to go onto the inters and then or the full, in case you wouldn't need to run 2 compounds.
Yeah, it's a good race.
But didn't come right until the end.
Yeah. When the race had finished, how many times does that happen? The race finishes and then you got cut to the actual coverage in the pit lane and it's chugging it down. You're like, why couldn't you have come 20 minutes earlier so we would have had a bit more excitement in the race?
Yeah, dry race, wet Ted Kravitz. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember him trying to drum up sympathy sort of towards the end of the race, saying, "Oh yeah, just feel sorry for me while I'm sort of going up and down the pit lane when it's absolutely chucking it down." But,
I'm sure he has a very nice Sky Sports brolly. Or that might have just been nicked by Liz and being his friends. Who knows? So obviously we finished at P7 for Lando, which I thought was, given the cars in front, all of the cars were faster. Well, they're obviously going to be, at the end of the race. But sort of, if you'd said Lando finishes P7th behind 2 Mercs, 2 Ferraris, and 2 Red Bulls, you'd kind of go, all right, well, fair enough. We've done the best that we can. So pretty happy with that. But Dan in P15 and the 2 Alpines scoring points, it's kind of a little bit of a punch in the stomach. Bit of a body blow.
It was probably
we equaled out there, didn't we? Like we scored as many points as the Alpines, though, right? So the gap didn't go anywhere.
Yep.
I think I was going to say, in fairness, it was probably to be expected that we did finish a little bit lower, given that the 2 Red Bulls were completely out of position. But I think that doesn't sort of take away from probably the disappointment of Dan losing 6 places.
Yeah, and pretty quickly as well, really. Yeah. So I guess the other thing that came up was, obviously you got a 5-second penalty as well, and let's be honest, we don't know how true this is, but there's quite a bit of speculation once again on Twitter that basically the pit wall told him about 15 minutes after he'd been given the penalty that he has a penalty. I'm kind of thinking there must be a reason for that. There must be a reason, Andy.
Well, why does he need to know? Right, if you're racing You don't need the extra distraction or the anger of I've got a 5-second penalty and to try and justify and brake a bit later or accelerate a bit earlier. Just let him race. He's not going to be able to go any faster. He's already at the maximum he's doing. I'm of the school of thought that don't tell him unless they need to know. If he crosses the line, and they're giving him times every lap saying you need to be doing this time, they don't ever justify why. If the reason for giving them that time is to build that 5-second gap to the car behind, he doesn't need to know the rest of that sentence. He just needs to know a time to hit. I'm definitely a school of thought, don't give them too much information or don't change the mental state so they're angry about something. Keep it from them.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking it might have been that, we were expecting to do maybe another pit stop, maybe under a safety car or something like that. And then, we don't lose so much time then. But yeah, it's also a very good point.
I think that's Andy's absolutely right in what he says there. The other side.
Which Andy?
Andy R, the one who knows what he's talking about.
Oh yes, that one.
No, the other school of thought of that is that if you tell him he's got the 5-second penalty, that gets him angry, maybe gets him to drive a bit better, builds that gap to the car behind. And maybe you're right, if he hasn't got a pit stop coming up, there's no need to tell him. But at the same time, if he has got a pit stop coming up, still tell him so he knows why they're not working on the car for 5 seconds. And then if they don't tell him, then he said, well, I could have driven a bit harder and just built that gap even more, and we wouldn't have lost as much time as we're going to now.
Yeah, I think I think that is a good point. I think maybe there's a lot of people getting angry about nothing there, and welcome to the.
You agree to disagree. That's all.
I just think it's but just on pit stops.
Oh, here we go.
Well, no. Obviously, Sarah's not here this week, but she did send me through some pit stop information, and once again. We are the second fastest pit stop of this weekend, which is great. A bit more consistency again. It's good to see.
They were all noticeably slower, though, weren't they?
Not just us. Everybody was. Yeah.
That was interesting. Like something different about Hungary or the temperature or something. That every team went their normal plus a second or 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Isn't the pit lane limit a bit slower in Hungary? Isn't it a bit tighter than normal, so it's a bit slower than the others, or are they all the same now?
I don't know. It's a shorter pit lane lost time because the last corner, it's actually faster if you do it in the pit lane for the last corner by a second. But that is the only stat I know about the pit lane in Hungary.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we came out of that with we got some points. Let's think that kind of not quite the end of the first half of the season we probably wanted, but Alpine are now on 99 points. We're on 95. We can still catch them. Loads of time, loads of races where we will be stronger than them, and vice versa. It's going to go right down the last race, I guess. Again, just on that, obviously it's the sort of summer break. I'm going to ask you both this question. I didn't put it on the agenda, but because I wanted you to be on the spot, to be honest. Give me a rating out of 10 for the first half of this season, and also give me one good point and one bad point. Go for it, Andy.
Good point. We've got a podium. Bad point. We have got about half as many points this time as we did this time last year.
Yeah.
And what was the first bit? The rating out of 10?
Yeah.
We have hope. We have good qualifying sessions, good practice sessions. I'm going 7.
Okay. Mark, what about you?
I'll agree with the rating. I think it's 7. I think we would like to be further up. Good point. We have a driver who is really sort of being consistent throughout the whole season, and he continues to improve. Bad point as a team, we're just not consistent at converting Q3s into points.
Yeah,
across the board.
Yeah, I think I agree with you guys. 7 is kind of where I think we're at. I think if we can finish the season on 8, then that'd be good. So a bit of work to do next thing. Good point and bad point, both for me, are Bahrain and brakes, as we kind of know. And the bad point is the fact that we had that problem in the first place. The good point is that we actually managed to solve it, and we are progressing. I reckon we're still a month or two behind a lot of other teams, and probably won't catch up too much until next year in that respect. But we seem to have a consistently decent car, reliable, and doing the other things right. I think we're just a little bit off the pace and a little bit off the development, because we had to kind of throw everything at the brakes when we had that problem. And hopefully that's also...
It was interesting seeing the development of the brakes from some welded pieces of, I'm assuming, steel or something. And obviously not steel, it's too heavy, but then to sit through a few races with these fudged brake discs to then see the actual proper nice carbon fiber brake disc come in, and the impact of that. It was interesting to see how we adapted to something that just wasn't anywhere near right. Our brakes were a proper issue right at the start of the season.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to, maybe if we can find out a little bit more information on that come the end of the season, when they say, "Oh, this is what happened," or anything else like that. So there's promise. Let's hope there's a bit of progress towards the end of the year, and kind of doing okay. So let's talk about Alonso. So today Alonso kind of dropped the bombshell that he was moving from Alpine to Aston Martin, which I've got to say, I didn't see it coming.
No chance.
No.
That I even thought that, I wouldn't have been surprised if he'd retired at the end of this year. I would have been going, yeah, fair enough. He's done all right. I mean, he has done pretty well in that Alpine. So I'm surprised that he's even moving from there. I kind of, it's that same thing. It now makes sense why Vettel announced his retirement at the beginning of the weekend, because obviously, if Alonso announces that he's going there and Vettel's still sat in a seat, and there's a lot of questions over Vettel straight away, because we all know that Lance Stroll is not getting kicked out of that team anytime soon. But I guess it brings that question as what happens next? Who goes where next?
When the announcement came, he's got a multi-year deal, and the first thought in my head was their facilities that they've invested all that money in. He's got to have seen something there for next year.
Yeah.
They've built an incredible facility. It's still being built even, but he's going to walk all over Lance Stroll.
Yeah. And it's going to be interesting what the inter-team dynamic's going to be like. We all know that, from experience and having talked to people in positions in mechanics and people in teams when Alonso's been there, it is very much all about Team Alonso, nothing else. So, that could be quite interesting. Could be fireworks.
Is it Mark Priestley's book where he shows that he talks about the mechanic? It's called. I think I'm either remembering this wrongly, and I'm sorry if I am. That Alonso paid off a lot of the mechanics' mortgages to get their loyalty intrinsically into him, and he used to do lots of things for the mechanics to just get their loyalty to be him, not for both sides of the garage. That's one way of doing it.
Yeah. I've heard something similar. Yeah.
I wonder how that would work. I wonder how that would work when his teammate's the son of the team owner.
Well, we'll find out next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thing like I was going to say, like Andy said, I can't see the logic in it unless he's seen something at the factory that says they're going to be at the front of the grid.
Well,
But then, in fact, you could also,
but
has Fernando been down this road before when he came back to us in the Maconda years? And let's be honest, that didn't exactly work out well for him.
No, but I guess people at Alpine are probably sitting there going, great, next year we're going to have a really competitive car and fight for wins. Because every time he's left, the cars that he's left have intrinsically got better quite considerably the year after.
And they'll have a lot of extra money to play with. Now they're not having to pay Fernando whatever he's getting paid, because I think it's fair to say that, well, Ocon's probably going to stay.
Yeah.
And the smart money seems to be on Piastri finally getting an F1 seat.
Yeah, you think that's the case? Or I'm just going to throw it out there. You think they're going to go for Danny Ric, get him back? No?
I think Dan nailed his flag to the mast last week, and when he did the talk with Ted in the brand center,
Yeah.
it's like, I'm with McLaren next year. There's no question. I don't need to make statements or anything because I'm with them next year.
Yeah.
So it didn't end that well, did it? At the end of his Renault days.
No. But then
they
Cyril's
wanted
not
him
there
to
anymore.
Yeah.
Did him and
Cyril
Cyril
hasn't
have
won.
a fallout? Did him and Cyril have a fallout, or did he just sort of wasn't working out for him and he wanted to change?
I don't think Cyril was too happy about Dan leaving in any way, shape, or form. He was there.
Well, that's fair enough, but
wasn't he?
that was a decision made when Cyril was still there.
Yeah.
But
not there anymore.
I don't see a reason for him to go back.
No, I don't. I'm just putting it out there. I think it's yeah.
There's a few F2 drives I'd like to see up there, just to see if they can make it.
Yeah.
Some of them are making some good waves, but could we rule out Schumacher going over? I know it's not F2, obviously, but
yeah, but I could see him going to a top team somewhere, someone else. Quite possibly maybe ending up in the Alpha with the Ferrari connections.
I can't see Schumacher going anywhere other than a Ferrari powered team.
Yeah, pretty much. So, yeah, that could happen. Who knows? Yeah, and I guess on the back of that, something you mentioned earlier, Mark, about engines.
Yeah. Well, I think we talked about silly season with drivers moving around. We've had the news that the VW group are coming in the form of Porsche with Red Bull and Audi probably with Sauber, as they'll probably go back to be called. Is it time for us to start looking around for a different engine supplier, or do we stick with Mercedes and perhaps accept that they won't be too happy if we do end up beating them?
I guess the question is that can we beat Mercedes in a Mercedes-powered car? At this minute in time, yes, we probably can. Can we beat Mercedes in a Mercedes-powered car when the engine is absolutely to the full hilt and everything else like that? Well, I would say yes, we can. We did in Monza last year. So I don't kind of subscribe to this. You'll never win whilst you've got a Mercedes engine because Mercedes will. But I certainly feel like the engine this year isn't as strong as what they would normally have it like. I can't see that being 2 years in a row. I think there'll be much more power in that engine next year.
Yeah, I was just thinking as well. I know a lot of people might think it's a bit of a step back, but if Red Bull are going to a VW, Porsche badged engine, where does that leave Honda? They've not really gone away from Formula One, even though they say that they have, and Red Bull have taken the technology, but I don't think they'll be away for too long.
I'm not so sure on that. I think they've part of their exit plan was giving the IP to Red Bull, and maybe what. I guess the big question is: are Honda going to be happy with Red Bull sharing their IP with somebody like Porsche VW Group?
But when are Porsche actually coming in? Is it from next year, or is it?
Oh, nothing's. Well, Christian Horner said that nothing's signed yet. They've just started initial talks.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if it's like 2026.
Yeah, it'll be far away.
Yeah. So I think that, way off that.
I mean, if you've driven past Red Bull recently, Milton Keynes, they have almost quadrupled their campus size. That they've got massive warehouses now for engine development, I'd guess. It's no longer just a couple of warehouse blocks. It's now a campus. It's huge.
Yeah, they took a lot of people from Mercedes as well. So they're committed to building Red Bull engines at some point.
Yeah, it wouldn't take a lot for them to sort of have the people from VW, Porsche, or whatever go to work there if they've got the space there already, or would they just be badged as VW or Porsche? I don't know.
I think it's possibly could.
Is it more sponsorship as opposed to engine supply? I think that's probably
could be that. Yeah, let's not rule out the fact that it could come in with Andretti or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we used to have the tag badged engine, didn't we?
Yeah. Well, we had a Lamborghini badged engine at one point. Peugeot as well, I think
Wasn't the Lamborghini just
Peugeot.
the test?
Yeah.
The Lamborghini was just a test, and they ended up going with Peugeot instead, didn't they?
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
I think you're right. Yeah, but yeah, Lamborghini or a Peugeot engine.
Take the Lambo.
Oh, that wasn't Ron's finest hour, was it?
No. Yeah. So, anything else to add from the weekend, or anything else from you guys?
I'm glad for the break.
Yeah.
I think so.
The weekend's off. Yeah. So, if you like the F1, we're going to take a break on this podcast. We're going to be back sort of mid-September due to a few other commitments. We'll be back then, but we will hopefully Sarah will be back then, and I'm sure that Andy and Mark will join us at some point along the way in the rest of the season. So yeah, everyone have a nice little break, and we will speak to you all soon. Thanks for joining me, Andy. Thanks also to Mark. And that's the end of another McLaren Fans podcast.